a good story. And I just think, when you trap all these people together in one spot and they have to work together to survive, I think that can add a lot of story, other than just surviving a bunch of zombies. And, of course, there was the great kills and everything. I definitely recommend Living Dead for any horror fan. And that concludes number 5. Number 4, the Scream series. This is another one by Wes Craven. I really like this one because I feel almost like this sort of kind of revived the slasher genre. I feel like, while it did break the fourth wall, with like in the first movie, how you had, if you break the rules of horror films, like, you have sex, you do drugs, that kind of stuff, you get killed. Thought that was kind of neat how it broke the fourth wall. And, even the second movie where it made its own rules, where, you could still do all those immoral things and you could still live. And then it was who the killers. Yes, there are more than one. Spoiler alert: there's more than one killer in the first two. I thought that was neat. More than one killer, and the fact that you really you kind of have a clue of who it is, but you don't really know until the very end. And I thought that was really cool. Part 3 was pretty forgettable. I mean, it was still worth the watch, but it wasn't the most memorable out of this franchise. And then 4 really surprised me. So, definitely check out the Scream series if you can. And that concludes number 3, the Feast series. Now, I know some of you are probably wondering why this made it to number 3 instead of something like Nightmare on Elm Street or Night of the Living Dead. Feast, there was a Project Greenlight production. It was submitted for a contest and it won, so it was made into a movie. And not only was it the first Project Greenlight submission to actually be successful, but it was the only one to actually produce sequels, and it had 2 of them. Feast, to me it felt like a cross between the Night of the Living Dead and the Alien movies. You had these flesh-eating monsters waiting to kill their human victims, but at the same time they were superhuman, and even their bodily fluids could kill you. And very slowly, might I add. Yeah, once again, just like with Night of the Living Dead, I love the characters in here. Very fun and interesting. Well, mostly in the first one, the second one not so much. And the third, of course, not so much. Now, they say there's another thing that's very interesting about the Feast series is the fact that the characters in here don't have names. They're actually given nicknames, and they even have little character bios as they're introduced. The nicknames are things like, usually a job title, like, bartender, biker queen, that kind of stuff. So that was a really fun series. I don't know if there will be a 4th one, but, it'd be really cool if they did, to kind of, or hopefully explain the origin of these monsters and where they came from, and do we have any hope of stopping them. And that concludes number 3. Number 2, Friday the 13th. I loved Friday the 13th. It was actually the first horror genre that I really got into. When the remake came out, I sat down and I said, I really never gave the series a try. So I went out, rented the first one, and then just in case I ended up really liking that, I rented the second one, and boy was I hooked. I remember After watching that, I went to Blockbuster, I think, about every day until I had finally seen them all. And I thought the second one was the best, you know. Can't go wrong with the original because, you know, it was just really well done. But part two, you know, I thought Jason was a more frightening killer than his mother. And part three gave us the iconic Jason in the hockey mask, which once again is ironic since Jason was never meant to be more than a plot device for these movies. You know, yeah, they do get a little silly towards the end. I feel like part 5 was truly the last one to use the formula of the original. After that, they just kind of took their own direction. But, you know, either way, I still enjoyed them for what they were worth. You know, and another thing, going back to Halloween, one thing I really like about Friday the 13th is I feel like you can really do just about anything with them. You know, Halloween, going back to Halloween again, I feel like, you know, giving it a storyline, you know, once its storyline was over, or it just wore thin, you know, there wasn't much to it, but Jason just killed anyone who went to Camp Crystal Lake, so you can do anything with that. You can put anyone in Camp Crystal Lake and make them survive against Jason for the night, so I thought that was really neat. And that concludes number 2. Now you are probably wondering what my number 1 pick is. Are you ready? My number 1 horror movie series pick is Sleepaway Camp. Now I discovered Sleepaway Camp at complete random on YouTube. Don't even ask how I found it. It was just search one thing, it led to that. Sleepaway Camp. When I first watched it, my reaction was, oh, another camp slasher. But then by the time I was halfway through it, I said, oh my god, another camp slasher. This was really fun. The story of the first one, it's about a girl named Angela Baker. Her family is killed in a boating accident, and she's forced to go live with her Aunt Martha and her cousin Ricky. And we're flashback to, I think it's about 10 years later. Yeah, she's about 14 during the present timeline of the movie. And she goes to camp with her cousin, but, you know, she's getting bullied a lot. Because, you know, she doesn't talk much, and all the other campers think she's weird. But, you know, and then all of a sudden people start getting killed. And that brings me to one of my favorite aspects of this series is the kills were so original, you know, like there was stuff I'd never seen in a horror movie before, like there was in part 2 there was the girl getting drowned in an outhouse. You know, some stuff I never saw before, and it made me wonder how Angela was going to do in her victims next. And the other thing I thought was really cool, probably another reason why you're wondering why I put this before major franchise movies like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, is the fact that I thought Angela was a relatable character. She was a normal girl. She, you know, felt pain, had feelings just like everybody else. And, you know, I thought that really made her a likable, unique character, and she was relatable. And the other thing is, you know, she wasn't some big hulking guy in a mask. You know, she was a regular girl, and I thought the fact that she could blend into just about any setting made her even more frightening, because how would you know if there's a killer sitting right next to you? But that's all I'm going to talk about that one. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. This is Tommy Williams, over and out.